What's going on? Coach Aubrey here, and this video is going to tell you all about how to strategize your arm workouts so you create a beautiful shape. So not just overall development, not just overall toning, that's great, but if you really want to create a desirable shape in your arms where they're not just looking bigger or smaller, this is the video for you. So if you do get value, please like and subscribe. That way you'll get notifications when all my new content comes out. And just as a note, if you look in the description to this video, you'll find the very arm workout that is compatible to this video. So give it a try, you're gonna love it. And that way, when you go through, you can actually do your workout as you're following these tips and feel what I'm talking about. So we're gonna go through a whole workout together, and I'm gonna explain a lot of tips for enhancing your mind-muscle connection, targeting areas that we want to grow versus areas we might not want to overgrow. So for example, when it comes to your bicep, you don't necessarily want to hit the top and the bottom of the head as hard as you're hitting the middle of the head. Because if you can really hit the belly of the muscle, that's going to give you more of a shape as opposed to it just growing overall and making you look thick. Another example would be shoulders. You can go heavier on shoulders and you want to do a little more work on shoulders so that those appear and are larger than your biceps and triceps. If you can imagine, you don't want to have huge biceps and triceps and tiny shoulders. So these are just a couple examples of what we'll be focusing on in this video and how to attain them. And along with going over these form tips, I'm also going to go through terminology that is used in that workout program. And so things like supersets, drop sets, rest pause sets, working sets, what do those mean? So this video is going to explain all of that and how to optimize those in your training. So without further ado, let's get started and dive right in. Let's jump in. So two terms I want to teach you before we even get started are working sets and warm-up sets. Working sets are going to be the sets that are on that workout you're looking at. These are going to be sets that you go the hardest on. You're going to be using the most weight you can, and you're going to be going the hardest you can to hit a target rep range. So these are the ones that count. Warm-up sets are going to be the sets you do before your working sets so that you enhance your mind-muscle connection and you prevent yourself from getting injured. So I would recommend doing 2 to 4 warm-up sets before you do your working sets. And these are going to be sets done with lighter weight, because all you're doing is you're getting a feel for the movement, you're putting your mind on the muscle you're targeting, and that way when you do your heaviest working sets, that mind-muscle connection is really tapped in and the work is going where you want it. And also you're not going to get hurt. And so as we do our first exercise, which is going to be dumbbell lat raises or lateral raises, we're going to talk about, you probably want to do, I'd say, let's say your top set's going to be 20 pounds. You might want to do your first warm-up set at about 10 pounds. I don't know, get maybe 10 to 12 reps. Do your second warm-up set at maybe 12 and a half pounds. Get about 6 to 8 reps. And then maybe do 15 pounds for, I don't know, 5 to 8 reps. And then I would touch the 20 pounds one time. And then give yourself some rest after you do all your warm-up sets, maybe 1 to 2 minutes before you go in and you do 20 pounds for your working set. So that's just an example. I'm not saying you have to use those weights, but just to give you an idea of how warm-up sets look before your working sets. So when you do your dumbbell lat raises, there's some cool tricks you can use, because what you really want to target here is your shoulder. So you want to think about targeting the belly of the shoulder. We're going to hit 2 more exercises later on that are going to target more of the front, the rear delt. But for the purpose of lateral raises, I want you to put your mind on the middle of your shoulder. And you want to get that blood going all the way up to here, where you feel that bone. So you really want to get that muscle to fill with blood. And so these are how they'll look. And some people prefer tilting just slightly. That might protect your lower back a little bit. I like to just keep my knees soft. That protects my lower back. And so when you come up, what I want you to think about is the back of your hand and pushing that out to the walls beside you. So instead of thinking about pushing them up, think about pushing them to the walls beside you like this. Do not release the tension at the bottom. Don't rest here. And then here's the trick. If you really want to get those rounded shoulders, you've got to go hard. So when it gets to where you can barely move the weight up, keep going. Keep going. Even if you're just right here, crank as many out as you can until you're barely moving on your working sets, and then release. It should hurt, I'll tell you that. And on that workout plan, you've got a drop set for your lat raises. The purpose of a drop set is you can push weight while also dragging your sets out. Shoulders respond very well to both. So if you want to get that rounded look on your shoulders, not necessarily bulky, but just a round shape, which I think most of us want, then you want to have a mix of the two. Most muscles in our body are composed of fast and slow twitch muscle fibers. Some are a little more dominant one way or the other, but typically if you can train most areas with heavy weight as well as longer sets, you kind of get the best of both worlds. So drop sets allows you to do that. And it also goes back to what you're aiming for. So for me, for example, right now, I competed as an IFBB pro in women's physique, and I didn't want to carry around so much muscle. Now I want more of a balanced lifestyle. I want to enjoy my body. I want to fit into bras. So I've been really downsizing my upper body and trying to keep my legs nice and round. So to do that, I've had to really cut back on the weight and drag my sets out. But you might be at a point where you feel really skinny and maybe you want to just grow muscle. If that's the case, push the weights a little heavier, a little bit lower reps, but still work on your endurance. That's gonna help you down the road. So just a little tip in there. Now drop sets are when you use the heaviest weight you can. They're working sets. Use the heaviest weight you can. Get the rep range designated on that plan. In parentheses, you'll see that it says, for example, 10 to 12 reps in each drop set. So that doesn't mean for the total drop set you want to get that number of reps. That means on the first set in the drop set, you want to get 10 to 12 reps. So in a drop set, you're going to do 3 sets. What you're going to do is you're going to choose the heaviest weight you plan to use. So for lat raises, you're going to hit that weight until you can't hit any more. Then you're going to put that weight down and immediately go to a lower weight and do the same thing. Try to hit 10 to 12 reps in that rep range, or whatever the rep range was. Put that weight down, and then one more time you're going to pick up a lighter weight and get a third set within that drop set. So that's why I say you're doing 3 sets in one. The purpose of drop sets, I've already told you one, but the other one is they're time savers and you can push yourself a lot harder. So we usually are ready to stop after one set, but if you can incorporate some drop sets in your training, you are going to push yourself to a new level. So just keep that in mind. Next is overhead shoulder presses. The reason why I put lat raises before shoulder presses is because lat raises allow us to really target that delt I was talking about before you move to more of a compound movement like overhead shoulder presses, where things like arms or traps might want to take over. And since your shoulders are already pre-exhausted, those are going to have a much stronger mind-muscle connection for your overhead press so that the work stays in your shoulders. Because just like I said in the beginning of the video, you want to work shoulders more than the smaller muscles in your arms so the proportions turn out right. So on overhead shoulder presses, you can do these seated, but if you do them standing, it's going to double as more of a core movement as well, because your core needs to stabilize you. What you want to think about is you might come here, but you don't want to release tension. So there's a big difference between doing an overhead shoulder press here and coming down and relaxing, and doing it and then coming here for a pause before you go back up. So at first you might be able to do really nice and controlled overhead movements, and I'll show you from the side. You want to think about going straight up and straight down. So you don't want to be like back here using momentum, and you don't want to get to where you're doing this and losing your form. You want to really stay locked in with those T arms and think about coming up, and imagine your shoulders are like little, let's say, stress balls. So when you get up here, imagine you're squeezing your shoulders like those stress balls. That's a good mind trick you can use for that mind-muscle connection. Squeeze and then try to pause for extra control and then go back up. Once you start getting fatigued, you don't have to go this slow. Then you want to really tap into your breath and breathe out and in and out. You might not want to rest at the bottom as long anymore. So you're going to go. And if you can have somebody spot you from behind, you will be able to push yourself harder. But I'll tell you a trick. You can either use a shoulder press machine, or if you want to even use a barbell and get really crazy, you can set up the safety bars so that they're high enough, like right up here, to where when you come down, if you've reached failure, you can just let go of the weight. So those are just a couple of tricks where you can really push yourself to failure on your own. And when I say push yourself to failure, I mean you're on a working set and there's no amount of willpower that's gonna push you to do another rep. Or you're feeling the movement in a place that you don't want to. So if you're doing shoulder raises, and for the purpose of this plan, we're wanting to target our shoulders, but if all of a sudden all you feel it in is your traps, and your traps are burning and you barely feel your shoulders, go ahead and put those weights down and just stop there and reset. I will say you'll probably feel your traps more on the lateral raises than you will on shoulder presses. And ladies, it's very rare that we have to really target our traps unless you're trying to compete in like women's physique, movements like rack pulls where you come up like this, lateral raises, a lot of high rows. All those are gonna also target your traps. So unless you wanna get big traps here, I wouldn't ever incorporate shrugs unless that's what you're going for. Now we're getting into the fun part. All right, so we're gonna do preacher curls next. And you can, this is how I set up in my gym, but if you are at your local gym, then you probably have a preacher curl machine, or you can use dumbbells, and they usually have a pad you can kind of rest your arms on, or you could even use a bench elevated and do single arm preacher curls. Whatever you choose to do, you want to have your elbows elevated. There's a reason for this. We are targeting the belly of the bicep here. We don't want to get really big here and really big here. We want to get big in the middle so that it has that shape, like I was talking about at the beginning of the video. Now I'll tell you a little cheat here. If you're a short lady, then your muscles are naturally shorter. So you can probably get away with doing more full range of motion bicep curls and get that shape a little better. But if you have longer muscles or even like average muscles, then you do want to target the belly more. That's the center of it right here. Because again, you don't want to just have this big arm, you want to have a shape to it. So that's why I suggest preacher curls. You want to have your elbows elevated, that's what's going to hit them. So when you want to give yourself plenty of support here, so have your arms over the edge far enough to where you're not having to actively hold your arms up. And then you're gonna bring the weight all the way down and feel that stretch and power them up and squeeze for a couple seconds. Squeeze them all the way down and then power them up and squeeze. And I want you to keep your mind on the belly of the muscle where we were talking about. If you're feeling it more here, then what I want you to do is go to single arm and put your finger right there and think about squeezing right there. And then shorten the range of motion. Don't go all the way down. Keep the range of motion short. So you're doing more like partial reps right here. You're keeping it right in that short range of motion and just annihilating the belly of the muscle. Squeeze as hard as you can and try to keep that tension all the way down, and then power it back up and do it again. And what's gonna happen is you're gonna make lightweight feel a lot heavier. That's why I always tell my clients, I say, try to make lightweight feel heavy. That way you don't have to go so heavy. You're gonna preserve your joints, and then once you do get stronger, your movements are gonna be way more beneficial because your form's gonna be so locked in. So that's how you wanna do your preacher curls. Now, on your plan, the workout that I attached below, you'll notice it says Superset. The purpose of Superset is that you can work back and forth between two exercises letting one area rest while you're working the other. So with arms, that's a great opportunity to do supersets because you save a lot of time and there's no need to take these long rest periods between, you know, muscle groups when you could be targeting a completely different area while you're letting one rest. So that's why you've got bicep curls, and then those are back to back with a tricep movement. So feel free to superset those moving forward. That's a great combo. And what you're gonna do, a superset means you don't rest in between sets. You do a full set here, then you go over to your triceps. You do a full set there. Then without any rest, you come back and do a full set here, and you keep going back and forth until you get as many sets as you're aiming for. On our next movement, tricep press downs, feel free to use a straight bar if you want to. I prefer a rope because that way you hit both sides of the tricep head. You know how they call it a horseshoe, if you have heard that before? It's because it makes a little bit of a horseshoe right here. If I wasn't quite this pale right now, you'd be able to see mine a little more. A good tan also brings out the shape in you, just saying. But if you use a rope, you're gonna be able to target both sides here and get more of that shape you're looking for. So what I do, and I'll show you in just a moment, is I take the rope and you wanna keep the tension at the top. Think about going down and out, up, feel that stretch. That's huge for a mind-muscle connection. When you come up and you feel that stretch there, think about pushing where you feel that stretch. And then again, you wanna take your arms out. I'm gonna show you what I mean, and then notice that I don't release tension at the top, and I'm very deliberate about pausing and letting both of the heads just fill up with blood at the end. So here they go. I'm gonna turn around this way now and show you that I also use a trick with my hands where I take my hands like this and I supinate them so that my palms are facing my face at first. And then when I come down here, I open them. So that also gives me a little bit of twist in my triceps where I'm gonna feel it on both sides. The other thing I'll say about these is you wanna keep your elbow locked in space. So you don't wanna be going like this. That's a mistake a lot of people make. You wanna keep your elbows right where they are and just move your forearms. That's what's gonna work the triceps. If you start doing this, you're gonna be working your back. So keep it in your triceps. Steep incline chest presses. Let's work on those. Or you could call them anterior shoulder presses, because that's what we're really going for. We wanna work the front of the shoulder right here. And the reason I prefer the incline chest press as opposed to something like front raises, because front raises, if you use dumbbells and you go like this, that is gonna target the anterior delt, and use the same rule we did with lateral raises where you don't release that tension. But the reason I like these is because it also creates a shape in the superior portion of your pecs. I don't know if you've experienced this before, but when you start getting more shape here, it looks really good and it still looks very feminine. Now, if you were to start doing decline chest presses, you're gonna get this weird muscle underneath your breast where if you get too strong there, it almost looks like you have a boob on top of a boob. I'm just being real. So I don't ever see a reason for doing decline chest presses. Even when I was deep into my women's physique journey, I didn't do them. I did some flat bench presses, but I'm mainly focused on elevated chest presses. So just keep in mind that we want to have a steep incline. So my incline is not laid that far back, it's just right here. So I'm mainly going to feel it in the anterior delt and the superior portion of the chest. So here's how you want it to look. You do want to feel a stretch when you get down here. That stretch allows you to connect with your pecs and the front of your shoulders. And then you want to come up, and if you can see, I'm not bringing the weights all the way together. I'm bringing the weights about that far apart, because if you touch them, you'll notice that you actually release tension at the top. The idea is you want to keep tension on the muscle the whole time. So again, steep incline chest press. We don't need to look like we got boob on boob. So that is the strategy here. And you really want to feel this in the front of the shoulders. So the way you do that is you embrace that stretch. Maybe pause there for a couple seconds and press where you feel that stretch. This is gonna keep it more in the shoulders than it is the chest, but it is gonna work the chest a little bit. Now, I'm making this lightweight feel really heavy. I'm only focusing on what I'm aiming for, and I'm thinking about solid bricks being in my hands. I'm talking about, bricks isn't even a good word, heavy stones. If you can imagine this, I promise you, the lightweight's gonna feel heavier. And if you really enhance that mind-muscle connection, it's gonna be really hard to get as many reps as if you were just sitting here cranking them out mindlessly. And so, just like we did with the shoulder presses, you might start off really controlled and pause here at the bottom before shooting back up. But then once you start getting fatigued, go a little quicker. So, and use your breath. Don't forget to breathe. Also on these, remember, if you're alone, you can put your safety bars right here. That way, if you're using a barbell, I shouldn't do this. If you're using a barbell, which you can here, if you end up burning out and you hit failure, you can just set the bar down and release safely. But with dumbbells, let me tell you this, hit failure. And if you hit failure and no one's there to spot you, drop the weights. I'm not saying to do it every time, but I'm just saying if you're in a bind, just let them go. Don't try to steadily put them down, let them go if you've lost control. You don't want to break your wrist, you don't want to hurt yourself. Planet Fitness might lunk alarm you, but you know what? It's better than losing your arm. Now I will say a tricky area to hit are the rear delts. A lot of times the traps take over when we try to hit the rear delts. Most of you are probably familiar with the rear delt fly, which is perfectly fine if you want to use that. And if your traps start to take over on these movements, think about resetting, take about 3 deep breaths, and then try to get back to it. If you use a rear delt fly machine or reverse fly machine, what you want to do is retract your shoulder blades and keep those locked in and only move your arms. If you can position yourself far enough away to where you can feel a stretch in the back of your shoulders when you bring your hands together, that's ideal, because then you can think about pushing where you feel that stretch. And on any of these movements, I would not death grip the handles. Try to keep your grip a little loose just to keep your arms, like your biceps and triceps and your forearms, out of it a little more. But the 2 movements that I find that are especially helpful for targeting the rear delts are face pulls, which I'm going to show you on the rope here, and rear delt flies using dumbbells, but you're actually going to lay over your legs and extend your arms. That one's a little tricky for some people if your mobility isn't quite there, and you really just have to be super tapped in to feel it in the right place. So I'll throw it in there just in case, but this is the go-to that I would suggest, face pulls. So you want to set your rope up high, and what you're going to do, just like that trick I taught you with the tricep press downs, where you start like this and you twist your hands as you come down, you're going to do the same thing with the face pulls. So you're going to start with your palms facing down, and then as you pull the weight to you, I want you to think about supinating your palms up. Allow yourself to feel a stretch when you get to the top. So put your mind right there on the rear delt, and then pull and pause. So you really want to squeeze the back of your shoulders. You don't want to squeeze them together. You don't need to come way back here, but just think about flexing them and really feeling the tension on the rear delt. Again, these are hard to target, so you've got to practice mind-muscle connection. The other trick you can use on any of these is visualization. So if you don't have a mirror where you can stare at the muscle, say you're doing lat raises, you can stare at that muscle and it will enhance your mind-muscle connection. But on something like a face pull, that's going to be hard to do. So I want you to visualize the back of your shoulders pulling that weight. It's more powerful than you think. So this is how it will look when you put it into action. And the reason I'm pausing at the top is because I'm allowing myself to feel that stretch, and then I use my mind-muscle connection to pull where I feel that stretch. And then I pause at the top of the rep to really squeeze those shoulders like I was saying. Feel the stretch, squeeze. And just like all the other movements, you want to start with as much control as you can. Take the weight and make it hard, make it heavy. Really zone in on my muscle connection and make it as heavy as you can. And then when you start to get fatigued, you can move through the motion a little more, but just keep that tension and you'll know when you hit failure. I feel like I've kept y'all about long enough, so I'm gonna go through these last 3 exercises real quick, beginning with the Arnold Shoulder Press. You can do these standing or seated. If you do them standing, just remember your core is gonna engage more. Now, remember, we've hit the mid delt on our lat raises and our shoulder presses. We've hit the anterior delt on our steep incline chest presses. We've hit our rear delt on the face pulls. So you have hit all corners of the shoulders. When you do your Arnold presses, this is where your mind-muscle connection practice really comes in handy. So this is what the movement's gonna look like. And remember to keep your knees soft. Gonna come around, make circles under your chin, and go back up for a shoulder press. This is what I want you to have your mind on as you go through this, okay? When you come down here, you're gonna lift out of the front of your shoulders. You're gonna press out of the middle of your shoulders, and then when you get to the very top, you're gonna squeeze the back of your shoulders. So go through that, and you can make big circles if you want to. And I want you to practice your mind-muscle connection, because this is a movement that's gonna hit all areas of your shoulder. So remember, we've got front, middle, back, middle, front, middle, back. And just put your mind on those areas as you're going through this movement. All right? Concentration curls are another really cool exercise for targeting the belly of the muscle. So they're gonna be for biceps. What you wanna do is I would recommend doing one arm at a time to start with. You wanna put your elbow on the inside of your leg, maybe more towards your knee. And then the trick is you wanna put your torso a little behind your leg. So you wanna think about pushing your upper body back while you work your arm. What you're gonna do, I'll give you even more room. You're gonna roll the weight out to your fingertips. And then you're gonna power it up and squeeze. Hold that contraction all the way down. Squeeze, 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 squeeze. And then release into your fingertips before powering it back up. Squeeze, 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 squeeze. Release into your fingertips, just like that. The 2 tricep options are both going to train in a lengthened muscle position, meaning you're gonna send your triceps through a full range of motion. The first is gonna be overhead tricep extensions, which are a really easy setup. All you're gonna do is grab a dumbbell, and again, you wanna keep your elbows still in space. So as I move through, I don't wanna bring them forward and I don't wanna start bringing them back. That's cheating. Keep them very still. Think about them just being glued, your elbows, to that point in space. The other thing is you wanna keep your arms close to your head. And the trick here for a full, intense contraction is imagine the top of the dumbbell, that flat part, being pressed to the ceiling. Imagine you're just pressing it into the ceiling as hard as you can. It sounds simple, but I'm telling you, if you picture that, you're gonna get a much stronger contraction. For skull crushers, I recommend using a pre-weighted bar, and you can either do a more full range of motion where you're really lengthening the muscle. So you bring it over your head like this, get that full stretch, keeping your elbows where they are in space, not letting them rock back and forth. This is gonna be all in your triceps if you keep those elbows really still. Or you can bring your arms forward so the bar is immediately in front of your face. This is how I like to do them. And you're not gonna go down like this. That's gonna be a chest press. You're gonna keep your elbows up and think about bringing that bar to your skull and press back up. You'll really feel it in your triceps if you do this. Skull, press up. Skull, crack it. Don't really crack your skull, but make sure you keep those elbows as still as you can. Let's wrap it up already. Final 2 exercises, forearms. Now, you wanna get high reps on forearms. It's a much smaller muscle, it's a much shorter muscle, so you don't necessarily need to do 6 to 8 reps as heavy as you can. We don't want our forearm to be more jacked than our bicep. However, You don't want to neglect forearms. Have you ever seen those people that have huge biceps and shoulders and it's like a stick? We don't want that. So you're gonna hit them from both sides. First, forearm curls. This is gonna hit the bigger muscle of the forearms. So what you're aiming for is right here. Put your mind there. It's a really short motion. Squeeze out into your fingertips, squeeze. The same way you did for concentration curls. You're gonna let them roll out into your fingertips, and then you're gonna squeeze. Try to really curl those wrists as high as you can. Now, you might wanna go heavier in weight on these because it's such a short range of motion, but try to get between about 20 to 30 reps here. And then you'll go significantly lighter and you'll work the back of the forearms. So you're gonna put your hands over your knees like so, and like a motorcycle, like you're starting a motorcycle. Zzz, zzz, just bring them up as high as you can. That's going to work right around there, all right? So again, this is all about focus. Focusing on what you're trying to target. Don't lift mindlessly. Do your best to put your mind on the precise muscle you're working. This is gonna give you a shape. Now, a lot of the shape comes in nutrition. I think you know that, but just wanna reiterate, I think I'm looking at the wrong place. All right, just wanna reiterate, nutrition is everything. So if you struggle with nutrition, or maybe you just don't have the information on nutrition that you need, check out some of my other videos. I give a lot away for free. And if you want extra help or you want to talk one-on-one, I'm always available for that. So you can message me through Instagram, Aubrey the Sculpting Coach is my handle, or Facebook, just Aubrey Whitley. You can also email me at aubrey@whitleyholistics.com. So if you got value from this, please subscribe. You're going to get notifications for my other videos. And just remember, this workout is posted in the description below. So until next time, stay strong, y'all. Go get it.